All right, so here we are doing the first Anarchy Roundtable at the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest. And we have some Sailor Jerry Spiced rum. We got some Sailor Jerry Spiced rum. We poured about that much out of it.
You want more?
So, and we are going to toast to freedom. All right, 3, 2, 1. To freedom!
Enjoy your freedom.
Freedom goes down good.
Welcome to Anarchy Roundtable. My name is Joe.
I'm Mike.
Freedom tastes like
CJ.
And I'm Daniel.
Hey, what are we talking about today, Joe? We're going to poll the audience and see if somebody wanted to seat us with a topic from the audience. What is the hot topic that's got you interested today?
SJW.
SJWs. You guys want to talk about some
not
SJWs?
hot enough to see it, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
All right. Get it going. You like the topic, so you start.
I guess. Where do I even start? You're the leader of this.
All right, I'll start the topic off. So, social justice warriors. How many people are aware of their?
Existence.
Well, yeah. Let's start with their existence. How many people out there are aware of the term? Okay, good. We have a lot of people in the audience. There's kind of a. If you look at what the social justice warrior
Does.
what they do from like a wide perspective. If you look at what the stuff that the general boilerplate stuff that they put out, a lot of it kind of makes sense, you know. Like you want people to be
Politically correct.
no, I'm not talking about politically correct. You're going deeper. I haven't got that part yet. They're deep. No, if you listen to like some of like the older feminism stuff, if you listen to like some of the older anti-racism stuff, a lot of these really genuine things that a society would live better by if you lived by these tenets. But as a movement achieves its goals, it's kind of like the NATO. You know, the Warsaw Pact was gone, and the whole purpose of the organization is gone, yet there it is, and it continues to live on even though it has no purpose. And I think that is what's happening with SJW.
Mission creep is the term. Mission creep. Finding stuff to do.
So yeah, we definitely have some of that going on.
Well, finding
with the
stuff to
SJW.
be offended by.
Yeah, so they're fine.
It's really coming down.
Yeah, so it used to be they were offended by things that were obviously very offensive, and now microaggressions,
Now it's competitive victimhood.
competitive victimhood calling out from the peanut gallery. There's actually a sociopathic trait, or a trait that some sociopaths have, where they claim a victim status as a means to manipulate people. And I think that this is where this is going. It's like
That's a
it's like a
accuser.
say again?
A guilt-producing accuser.
A guilt-producing
Makes you wrong to
accuser.
make them right.
Yes.
Wow. That's the first thing I've heard from you that was intelligent, Brandon.
No more free beer for you.
Much love, Brandon.
So, yeah, and so they find ever pettier and pettier and pettier things to claim victim status about, and they use that to control people by claiming that they're a victim. And that's like a sociopath can do that individually, but if you could, I don't know if there's a term for cultural sociopathy, but
You mean Hitler?
Cultural society.
Stockholm syndrome.
That works.
Stockholm syndrome.
Everyone that disagrees with me is basically Hitler.
Well, yeah, and there is some of that. So you had brought up, what was the term that you used?
Mission creep. Mission creep.
Yeah, use mine.
Tell us a little bit about some examples of mission creep in history.
Well, you already mentioned NATO. That's a huge one that's really recent and obvious, where you create an alliance to stand up to the Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union goes away. And then you just kind of go around looking for stuff to do. So yeah, Yugoslavia sounds nice. Let's bomb that a bit and see what sticks. And let's, start adding a bunch of countries that used to be part of the Warsaw Pact, and we all promise that we'll act surprised when Russia gets a little bit creeped out by this. Yeah. So, other than that, I don't know.
Job security.
Yeah. Mission creep, well, law enforcement, Like, we need someone to go after murderers, rapists, and thieves.
And seatbelt.
And to make sure that your grass isn't, a certain height, and, to make sure that you don't have, the wrong sorts of stuff on your person, so to speak. So it's just mission creep. Just look for stuff to do, And the thing is, in public choice economics, you get a bigger budget when you spend all your money in your current budget. And so basically, if your current budget is not depleted by doing what you're supposed to do, you find other stuff to do so that you can get a bigger budget next time. Pretty simple.
Corporations do similar things, and many corporations, like utilities, are kind of government sponsored. So CJ, what is the mission of the Dangerous History podcast? Speaking of mission
creep, it's actually not going to be about history anymore. I've decided I've gone as far as I can go.
No.
It's going to be a combination of sports talk and celebrity gossip.
Okay, nice seeing you, CJ. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, well, I feel like if I get a certain level of success, I need to do that. I need to just completely abandon history. And the reason I say that is I look at the TV networks, and I look at how MTV has no music videos, and the History Channel, they've got ancient aliens and Cajuns yelling gibberish while they're killing alligators.
Pawn Star.
Yeah, Pawn Star is probably the most historical show they still have. At least some of the stuff they buy in there is old. But,
Come on, George Tsoukalos is legit.
is that the big hair dude?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was just known as the big hair dude.
Wait, who's the bald guy that, he always undercuts people? Like
Pawn Stars guy?
Yeah.
I forget his name.
I
His
hate that
memes
fucking
were
guy.
going around.
What about Vikings? Vikings is on the History Channel.
Vikings?
Yeah.
What do you know about Vikings? I really find
Everything
fascinated
on
by
TV
Vikings.
is good for
Have you
us.
seen the TV show Vikings?
No.
Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes to Game of Thrones, no to Vikings.
Game of Thrones is real history.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is real history with the names changed to protect the guilty.
So you're going with the kinds of stories that they're telling in the Game of Thrones is an accurate portrayal of the kinds of things that have happened in the past.
Especially dragons.
Well, obviously, except for that kind of stuff. But.
Well, HBO makes the people in the stories a lot more attractive than their real life versions. If you ever actually go and look at some of these dukes and kings and barons and duchesses and so on, you'll find that they're not tenants.
No, they were.
So-
That single branch family tree doesn't help.
Yes, very shallow gene pool. So, but other than that, other than making the people better looking, yeah, it's pretty accurate. I think didn't what's his name who wrote that say that he based it in part on the Wars of the Roses? I think.
George
R.
George
The middle of
Can you
it.
refresh our memory on what the War of the Roses was about, so that we can?
Civil War, dynastic war in England in, I want to say the 14th century maybe, where there was two houses, Lancaster and York, both of whom thought they should have the throne, and they fought a civil war about it. And that's pretty much it.
So what is it about the War of the Roses that makes it so that we know that term today? Is there something special about it that was bigger or grander or more fun?
Yeah, I think there was a movie.
Danny DeVito.
DeVito, is that who was in it? Yeah.
It was Kathleen
Hey,
Turner and
Kathleen
Michael
Turner.
Douglas.
Michael Douglas, yeah, that's, yeah.
DeVito was in it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
DeVito was the lawyer.
People are saying
Yeah.
DeVito was in it.
That was a good movie.
So the movie with Danny DeVito makes the history relevant. So that brings up an interesting topic about trying to spread history through the arts. But a lot of times when the arts do it, they kind of mix it up. I think Mike wants to comment on that, though.
Are you at liberty to talk about any upcoming projects?
Yeah, I can talk about a few, sure. DHP Heroes Spotlight on General Smedley Butler is coming along in the next few weeks. October sometime, Norman Conquest of England is going to be there, and always lurking in the background is my indestructible white whale that I shall never harpoon to my satisfaction, which is the Not-So-Civil War. And that one is just so daunting that every time I think I'm starting to get a toehold in it, then I find another 28 books I need to look up. So, yeah, no promises on when the Not-So-Civil War will be starting, but Smedley Butler, Norman Conquest, and I might do something totally different in late October, Halloween related. We'll see. We'll see.
Any other projects not related directly to the show?
I've got multiple possible book ideas, but the problem with that is that's a lot of work.
I think an excellent book title would be A Dangerous History of the United States. What do you think?
That sounds like a very long book title.
Values.
Maybe just, yeah, the dangerous history of the last 10 years. Although I hear Scott Horton's kind of writing that, so.
About a dangerous history of the volunteerist anarchist movement in the United States.
Yeah, that's a possibility. You know, another one I've got kind of on the back burner a little bit, but is in the possibles bag, is something about 19th century anarchism. And I might just make it American just to make it, you know, not be quite as long. But some of the stuff I talked about earlier today with abolitionists and those people would tie in. Of course, you have people like Lysander Spooner, Benjamin Tucker, those sorts of characters. And even some of the European anarchists who some people characterize as left anarchists, but I don't know, they're kind of complicated, like Proudhon, for example. Yeah, I think there's something there. There's something there.
Tell us a bit about Proudhon.
Well, I'm not a big expert. I've read a bit on him, and it was many years ago. But from what I recall, Proudhon, I would say, is somebody who really was kind of like a free market anarchist, but just didn't put things in the same terms. But when you actually dig into what he's saying, a lot of it is not too different from Spooner and people like that.
Where is he from?
Proudhon, I think, France. Someone in here who knows better can correct me?
Sounds French.
It sure sounds French, yeah.
Didn't
So either
France,
that or Cajun.
didn't France have a long, like an early history of a classical liberal movement that was very powerful? Isn't that how they? Is that why stuff that's French is considered fancy? Because for a while they were wealthy, and fancy is where wealth is.
Well, you know,
I think that's French.
the mechanisms of dynastic politics in Europe meant that for a while, a lot of the different crown ruffians were connected to the French monarchy through marriage and this sort of thing. And so what ended up happening is somehow the French language just got chosen as like the civilized language in Europe in kind of the 17th, 18th, maybe thereabouts centuries. And that's why, for example, the Russian aristocracy all spoke perfect French. You know, it seems kind of weird. But yeah.
So you think that's the reason why French is considered fancy?
I think so. I just think for a long time in Europe it was considered like, you know, to be part of the cool club, whatever country you were in, it was, you know, to know French. Just like Americans of the upper classes want to speak with that semi-British accent of Buckley and Gore Vidal and these sorts of characters, where it kind of sounds English but kind of not. You know, it's phony as can be, but they just consider it part of their kind of aristocracy, part of their station in life.
So it's a made-up aristocratic accent?
I think so. Can't prove this yet.
What's the origin of your cool accent?
Origin of my cool accent? I don't have an accent. You have an accent.
No, we're just speaking English here.
No, you have an accent, Mike.
Nobody's talking to you, Danny.
That's my response to that, Mike.
Are you from Florida originally?
Yeah, it's a weird mismatch of different things that don't make sense. I'm originally from South Florida, and I have one side of my family from Florida for a long time. The other side moved down not long after World War II from up north. And then growing up in South Florida, you got everything there is around you. You've got people from all over the world. It's like LA or New York or someplace like that. So all that goes in, and then after that I moved up to North Florida, which is actually the southern part. And somewhere along the way, spent a couple
Georgia
years-
Light.
Yeah, Floribama in the Panhandle.
He said Georgia like.
Yeah, and spent a few years along the way in East Tennessee too, so that just kind of added more weirdness to the kind of Cajun gumbo of my accent, I guess.
Yeah, it's just been kind of funny talking to you in real life, and after listening to all your podcasts, you just sound just like you do.
Yeah, I'm not faking it. I'm not putting on an affected movie trailer voice or anything like that. Hello world.
Yeah, if they ever make a cartoon with you in it, you'll have to do your voice.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. You work inside the semi-stated environment of the university system, and you have a master's degree in history, is that right?
Yes, master's degree.
So you have a master's degree in history. You came up through this heavily state-influenced system that we all come up through, but you came up quite a long ways through it to get a master's degree. My question is one that we ask a lot of people, and that is, tell me about your anarchy story. How did you get from going through all of this many years of indoctrination to becoming someone who can see through that, is searching for the history that we weren't taught in school, and eventually conclude that you would like to do away with the entire coercive system that is at stake?
Okay, I hope everybody is comfortable and has topped off their beverages and whatever else you want to do. Okay, all right, real quick. Yeah, just one time. Well, let's see. Basically, trying to condense it down, I would say
Yeah, you don't have to condense it
I
that
could
much.
take like 33, maybe 34 and a half. Okay. I have never quite lost that smart-ass questioning streak that I think most people have. And for whatever reason, I don't know if I'm just not wired up the quote-unquote right way. But it just never took hold in me, really. I mean, I didn't know what I was, but I knew I didn't believe the people in charge of stuff. And spent a long time in kind of mild libertarian limbo of Gary Johnson land and LP land and all that of, wow, get back to the Constitution and the war on drugs and it'll be all right kind of thing. And, the problem I had was I just kept digging more into history. And the reason I started my show is because for me, and this I think there's different things that resonate with different people. But for me, I actually got turned into an anarchist by history. Just by at some point, I keep digging into this stuff, and I realize the people in charge are never good. And this never ends well. And I'm starting to see a pattern, and maybe it's not just a matter of trying some different dude, you know.
But Trump's going to make America great again.
Yeah, and Diocletian was going to make Rome great again, and Justinian was going to make Byzantium great again, and you know, basically making something great again always seems to involve a lot more mountain of skulls and depletion of people's freedom. So, yeah, I just don't buy it anymore. Yeah.
I think what Danny's trying to say is we just need a wall, make everything okay.
Yeah, you know, if they would just pass a law that said they had to obey the Constitution, that probably would do it.
That's a good point.
They should try that. They should pass
Maybe
one
an
more.
amendment
Yeah.
to say that the Constitution has to
Exactly.
be followed.
Yes.
We gotta reinterpret, we have to interpret the Constitution as it originally was written. That's what we need to get back to.
Why not just go for the words, whatever the words seem to mean?
Shut up, Mike.
Not if you're out in the woods and you don't have any leaves or anything in the
Well,
way.
if you wipe your ass with it, that would be fantastic. You probably feel great on your butthole.
So did you ever, say what the mission is? Or do you have a mission?
What do you hope to achieve with the Dangerous History podcast?
The mission. I don't know. I just had some stuff I wanted to say, and I found it kind of cathartic to throw it out there into the universe, I guess. But beyond that, you know, I think it's empowering to learn more about stuff in general. I think some people, at least, find this kind of stuff, like history stuff, entertaining, believe it or not. And, yeah.
Joe and I care a lot.
We care.
You are the most quoted person on
On our show.
this little show we have.
All right.
Yeah, we've mentioned you many times on the show, so the audience will be happy to meet you this way.
Cool, yeah. Well, you know, basically just trying to spread a combination of education and enlightenment in the little way I can. That's really all it amounts to. You know,
The Glenn Beck program.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, well, you know, maybe one day if I'm lucky.
Between all the crazy, he does say some smart things once in a while.
Stop clock is right twice a day.
So on your show, you talk about the new dark age, and that sounds like a little bit of a pessimistic view of the future. And I'm curious, do you see a path to a free and stateless society? And is it through the dark age, on the other side of it, or do you think we could skip the dark age part, or do you see a path to freedom and statelessness? I'm curious if you thought about that.
I go back and forth between optimism and pessimism by the moment. So I don't have any sort of consistent take. I think at this point anything is possible. One thing that I've learned from way too many hours spent reading history books is that there are a lot of variables. And so it's always very difficult to predict with exact accuracy how things will play out, and there's always the possibility of, you know, the black swan sort of thing, right? Like that, the Taylor book, of certain things just happen that are completely unpredictable. And maybe some things that were predictable with hindsight, but there's just too many variables to take into account. So just the same way that a central planner can't just, you know, run an economy of millions of people and expect to achieve anything positive, I'm always skeptical of trying to project too much, because you always run into the problem of wanting to project present trends, and they don't always continue as they are going.
Yeah, you project your own opinion onto everything. It seems to be, in my lifetime, we've just been kind of getting more and more oppressed or controlled, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to reverse that trend. I don't see anything in the recent past, it's like one step forward and two steps back or whatever.
Well, one thing I would say is that it can be going in two directions at once, or
Yes.
multiple directions at once in different spheres. And you can even see this in history, like in the 1930s, you had the New Deal, which was a big encroachment upon economic freedom. At the same time, though, they did end alcohol prohibition.
One thing I've noticed about American history is that as the mass of American people become less and less free, the freedom that we have is available to more and more people. So when it started out, you pretty much had to be a land-owning white male to have the degree of freedom that we're all praised that America was about at the founding of the empire. But obviously, the black people were slaves, Irish people were slaves, and then indentured servants, and women were essentially the slaves of their husbands, and lots of people were discriminated against. And then what did you say?
Women are supposed to be. That's what I was taught in Bible school.
I'm sure you were. So, and some of this is supported by religion. And then over time, we had all of these movements to bring freedom. One was unfortunately done by war. Freedom for the chattel slaves. And I'm not sure exactly how slavery ended for the Irish people, but that ended. And
They became cops.
oh, that's right. They did become cops. I forgot about that. They went from slave to slave master in a heartbeat. And then in the early 20th century, women were they got the right to vote, and they became more and more recognized as they became more and more recognized as equals in in employment and other areas. Some of it was cultural, and some of it was legal. So this freedom is applying to more and more people as the legislator and all of the bureaucracy continues to grow and grow and grow and clamp down on the freedom of the entire population. So you have the extension of freedom to more people, and the degree of freedom that is extended is being squashed at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to sum up the trend. I would basically agree with that. But and unfortunately, instead of extending the amount of freedom that the smaller privileged group had to everybody, you're right. It kind of gets a bit watered down and chipped away as it gets spread out to more people. So yeah, I don't think I have anything much more to add to that.
What can you say, since I wasn't sure, what can you say about how the Irish escaped their slavery?
Well, are you talking about like how they were in the United States, or how they were in Ireland?
When they were first brought to the United States, I think I learned from your show that they were brought over as chattel slaves, and then they became indentured servants, and then somehow they escaped that and became free people.
Well, most of them when they came as indentured servants, but indentured servant in practice meant not a whole lot different from a slave at that time in terms of your master could beat you, your master could sell you to another master during your term of indenture. I mean, the main difference was that it was temporary. It was usually 7 years or whatever. I don't think most of them were like flat out slaves for life, other than some who were probably political prisoners because of different Irish rebellions and that sort of thing. Basically, over time, they just kind of gradually assimilated into whiteness, for lack of a better term. I mean, Thaddeus Russell, you can read in Renegade History.
Love that. Yeah.
Of the United States.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I came up with that book title earlier.
I think he's got a chapter in there. It's entitled something like "How the Irish Became White." And he talks about this, how, because he's absolutely right. If you go back, 150, 200 years or more into history, you find the Irish being described by the Anglo-Saxons as being, on the same level with the blacks and Indians, and some of them even consider them worse at the time. And I think it's Thaddeus Russell who points out that in some respectable publications of back then, there was serious speculation by Ivy League experts that the Irish might not in fact be fully human. Right. They might actually be a particular subspecies of chimp. So, yeah.
That's a common thread throughout history, too, though. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Oh, yeah.
Like they
yeah,
call
yeah.
the Japanese people Japs and.
Yeah, dehumanizing the other and so on.
Just as a comment, I like to troll around, and the alt-right I find interesting, because the alt-right is getting into what I would categorize as,
Just give a couple sentences description of what the alt-right is.
it's basically everyone that's been pissed off. It's basically white men that have been pissed off at feminism and Muslims.
Not getting a date.
It's like the inverse of the SJW.
Yeah, it's the inverse of the SJW. What I find interesting is that they use scientific data as a means to discriminate against other people. Particularly, a lot of them. You guys
An
are
example?
John Black.
No, an example of the scientific. An example of the scientific data that they're using.
Well, like so, me being the token minority on the show, which I'm okay with, you white devils.
Never.
Well, I get the most attention from women, so. All right, so.
And men.
I saw you checking me out earlier.
You're cute.
Okay, you're making this really weird.
Everybody touches your hair.
Okay. Enough of that. What they're using is like IQ, intelligence quotient. So they will sit there and say, okay, so blacks on the whole have a intelligence index that's slightly below whites, or the Asians have a higher intelligence than whites, and the Mexicans, and I should say
Jewish
Latinos.
people are the smartest, though. Don't forget.
Supposedly, yeah, but I don't know.
I think they're smarter.
But they use this type of like small, like these small differences as a means to sit there and say, oh, we are superior. The white race is superior. And it's very fascinating to watch this unfold because it kind of it lends itself towards like the whole, Prof, you correct me on this. It kind of lends itself towards this credibility of like white supremacy. But even then, it goes beyond that because then you have the black groups and Latino groups that are saying, oh, we need our own little supremacy group. And I'm seeing a lot of infighting within the human species.
I think like all racism and prejudices are supported or propagated, or like a person can say, I'm a good person, I'm religious or whatever, but they're a good person, but they can hate black people or white people or Asian people or whoever they want to hate, and because they think they're less than them. You know, if you think that this person is less than human because he's from Florida,
Yes.
or because you're some kind of
Floridians
Mexican,
are horrible people.
yeah, and you're Honduran,
Yeah.
so you're like subhuman or he's subhuman.
I'm okay with being kind of subhuman.
But I'm just saying, that's the basis of, you can kind of like say, I'm a good person, but, you know, they're not a real person, they're, you know, a lower level, and that's how people can look themselves in the mirror and be so hateful.
Well, I gotta ask, Frank, what are your thoughts on
The second smart thing you said today.
Actually, I want to stop you right there.
Oh, why?
I need to interrupt you right now. And it's
You
not
did
just
interrupt
because
me.
I need to interrupt you.
Because you're
That's
rude.
my job.
DJ has come out on his podcast and has decided to let go of the label prop, right?
Well, not really officially. It's just
Oh,
you know,
okay.
it's not part of the official title of the show anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that we were calling you by what you wanted to call
Oh, no.
Sure.
Whatever is fine. Yeah. By the way, just can I say on this subject of the alt-right and everything, I think it's starting to look like what they really want to do is to make phrenology great again. Phrenology. Learning everything you need to know about a person by the bumps and ridges and valleys in their skull. And looks like that's where the end game of this thing is going to be.
That's why Danny has curly hair, hiding something.
I was asking like what his take on the alt-right was. Like, fully explain it. So now you put me in a corner. I have nothing to discuss any further. Thank you, Joe, for being such an asshole.
That's my job. No, that's
No,
Danny's
that's my
job.
job.
Danny's the asshole. I interrupt people. Did you want to say something? Too bad. And props, CJ is the smart one.
So, Prof, I gotta ask you.
He goes back to prom.
Sorry. I mean, I really don't give a shit what your name is.
He's Mexican, he can say whatever he
I'm
wants.
gonna give you a name and this sticks, and that's it. Just like my pet dog. So I gotta ask, what do you think of the Black Lives Matter? Like, I'm curious, like.
You hold that a little closer.
Oh yeah, I'm curious about your views on like the SJW shit in terms of like, are you at all? I'm not particularly empathetic, even being dark skinned. I'm not particularly empathetic towards Black Lives Matter. And as a Latino, I kind of flow between the whites and the blacks pretty nicely. So I'm curious, do you see this Black Lives Matter type of stuff actually being like historically?
Significant.
Yes, significant.
Yes, in the sense that I think, and this is the area where I'm somewhat sympathetic to it, is that people across the board are starting to wake up a lot more to problems of police brutality and militarization of police and this sort of thing. And I see that as a manifestation of that problem, and we might not agree with kind of how they put everything or that sort of thing, but I think they've got legitimate reasons to be pissed off about a lot of these police incidents.
Yeah, I tend to agree that, I mean, obviously they have reasons to be angry. What bothers me about the Black Lives Matter movement is I think it misses the greater story of it's the state versus all of us, and I think it serves to divide us. And I think it would serve us so much better if we could go out there and just simply protest the police violence without bringing race into the issue, because they will kill anybody of any race, national origin, color, sex, or whatever. But they do tend to favor people who are in some kind of way unable to comply, like deaf people, people with headphones on,
Retards.
retards, for lack of a for a non-SJW term, and
He can say that he's black.
We'll go with it.
Or people who speak foreign language, you're in jeopardy when you're around the police. If you meet one of these, I think one of them had a broken back. They were falling out of their car or something. They were on the side of the road. They had a broken back, and the police are yelling at them to do something, and because they had a broken back and they're paralyzed. They're on the side of the road, and it didn't matter. These are the people who are most likely to be victims of the police. And it's really all of us, because there's any number of reasons why any of us could be unable to comply. You could be in a diabetic coma, or just confused about what it is they're telling you to do, because it's often ridiculous.
Yes.
I did a YouTube video one time where I demoed the process of being pulled over and detained by a cop on the side of the road, and complete with the tackling and beating of the person. And what I was highlighting in there is that the police are like, get on the ground, and they're yelling at you, and you've spent your entire life, like, not your entire life, but like maybe like the last 20 years, if you're like 40, having almost never been on the ground. Like, you don't sit on concrete, you don't lay down on concrete. This is a completely foreign idea to you. And here's this person yelling at you, and you're stressed out, and they're telling you to do this thing that you never do. And if you don't do it like you're a beach volleyball player diving into the concrete, sometimes it can lead to a negative result. And I think this is the kind of stuff that Black Lives Matter misses. That this could really happen to anyone.
I think the police target black people for one thing because usually they don't have the political clout or the money necessarily to fight them, so they're an easy target. Criminals look for easy targets, and cops are kind of like criminals.
Easy targets.
No, criminals like robbers. They're always, you don't want to be criminals. That's what I just said. But anyway, I think
I also killed that homeless guy.
Easy target.
Easy target. Yeah, they do look for easy targets.
And and they don't feel any empathy towards that person because they're not part of their group. Whether they're homeless or black or whatever. And I think I literally think there's a conspiracy by the media and the government to turn this police brutality, inhuman, horrible drug war, which really causes most of the brutality is the drug war, is probably 80-90% of it at least.
It gives them the tools necessary to carry out the violence that they do.
It puts them into people's lives where they don't really need to be. But, I think it's like a conspiracy. I mean, most people don't realize most of the race riots of the 60s and that were caused by police brutality or police murder. I don't know the percentage, but I'm sure most of them were sparked by some incident of, police brutality against a black person and stuff. And I think what we have nowadays is just the media spinning it and the government spinning it to say, oh, it's racism. So that way, my friends that are, just the black people being stupid and, if he wasn't there doing this or doing that, black people think it's a straight out racism and everybody's missing the real point that it's the police shouldn't be there.
Yeah, we need to just end the police because of their power to just do violence with impunity.
At the very least, end the drug war.
Yeah, definitely end that. One thing that happens with the media, which I find interesting, except for the homeless guy, I find it interesting that they cover almost exclusively minorities who are killed by the police when like 45% of the people who are killed by the police are not. And then as soon as you bring that up, people mention ratios, and it's true that the minorities are targeted at a much higher percentage based on their population, but it's just curious that the story doesn't get covered if it's not a minority or a homeless person.
Well,
No one cares about the homeless people.
Well, if you look at the way that the news media works, they seem to pick up on certain stories for whatever editors, whatever reason there is, and they tend to, a lot of these issues or whatever, the situations they pick up on are really sketchy to begin with. I think they maybe do that on purpose so it can be so divisive and, divide and conquer instead of people getting together and saying, hey, this is bullshit. They turn it into a racial thing. So they take a person who's black who did something stupid or whatever, and then they put it out there in front of everybody and make it a really big deal, and it's really racially divisive. And I think that's part of the plan.
Hold on. Can I interrupt for a second?
Okay, I was curious what CJ thought about this.
Well, Patrick, did you
I
have a
just wanted
question?
to point out that.
We have a comment from the audience. Come on up.
I'll comment.
No, you have to come on.
You got a comment. You're a
We're
white
making a
guy.
podcast.
Your opinion matters.
As long as
Patrick's lives matter.
as long as black people and white people are fighting, and straight people and gay people are fighting, and women and men are fighting, nobody stares at the pyramid at the top. They don't look at the eye at the top of the pyramid. We fight amongst ourselves, divide and conquer.
Yep.
Thank you, Patrick, for saying in a short moment what I was trying to say in a very long way, and I wasn't sure if I was getting the point across.
I also want to mention that concert that's going on in the farmhouse, they're kind of like going to hold off for you guys.
Oh,
Thank
always
you.
there.
So there is a concert that is starting in the farmhouse as soon as we wrap up here.
Wait, it looks like they came to you.
Oh, look at this. We have people.
Oh my gosh.
We have microtonal musicians approaching the stage now. So with that, I think we should wrap up the show pretty soon. But I do want to hear one more question for CJ.
His opinion doesn't matter.
That sums it up.
What do you think about how the connection between the news media and the state? Because theoretically, the news media is private and the state is separate from it. Yet the news media seems to sing the praises of the state. And I'm wondering, like, what degree do you think is just because fear sells versus fear helps the state, and divide and conquer helps the state? Because the fact that they don't cover the stories of the majority of people who are killed by the police, and they're very selective on that, lends to this suppression that we all live under, versus they had made a more comprehensive coverage.
Yeah, well, the news media benefits from people being angry. I think we all understand that. I'm sure we all probably have friends and family who spend hours upon hours every single evening yelling either in agreement or disagreement at Fox News, MSNBC, whatever it is. Yeah.
The only two real opinions out there.
Right, the only two options.
Glenn Beck is the real opinion.
That's true.
And there's also Alex Jones, he's a great guy.
But they, I think there's a bunch of things at play, and part of it is, that anger makes people consume more media, and if you're consuming more media, they can do more to sell you razor blades and soap and whatever else it is. And it's also, they benefit from being in a privileged position relative to the state.
Use that term privilege.
In regards to the corporate media, not in regards to any particular ethnic group or anything. So, it's worked so far. It's very important for them to remain on friendly terms with the state. That's
They
why
can't ask really hard questions of the government, otherwise they might not get invited back.
they lose their sources, they lose their access to things. It's the same reason, in a way, is why a prosecutor is reluctant to prosecute a cop who's obviously guilty of something, because it ruins the whole relationship they have with them. So,
You don't shit where you eat.
yeah, exactly. Plus, one more thing is, it's easier. Human beings will, if you have a situation where you can do less work and make more money, or do more work and make less money and make a lot of enemies, most human beings are going to take choice A. And the fact of the matter is, if you simply just read the government's press releases in front of a camera, that's not a lot of work. And you make a lot of money.
I've been collecting the front pages. I have a tiny local newspaper that comes to my mailbox once a week for free. And for the last several months, I have been collecting pictures of the front page of this newspaper. And I will say 99% of the front pages have a story that was handed to the newspaper by the government. So what would happen if that newspaper ended up in a bad relationship with the government? Where would their almost free source of information come from at that point? How would they produce their newspaper? They would have to spend money going out into the community to find news.
Well, the thing is that not all of us here, not the audience, and not us, maybe some of the audience,
Closer.
some of the audience, and maybe some of us, well, we're all slightly retarded, but a lot of us have been kind of bred into, or not bred, or indoctrinated into this notion that you can trust this entity, this government. You can trust it, and it's always going to tell you the truth. That's what's really going on. That's why people will like as you're talking about the news media, they will take the government's official word and just run with it. They don't care about that. Now, I look at alternative media, and even alternative media is getting poisoned by it with the likes of like YouTube or whatever. They still are in debt with the state.
Certainly. So I'd like to wrap up. I think let's get some final comments. Mike has a final comment.
Not really. I just wanted CJ to wrap the show up.
I do want to say one thing though before we wrap up. I just want to thank the Freehoffs for providing their Agarth salsa to hold up our flag. You can get some in the back. you have some final words.
This is the part where I'm supposed to. Oh, what do I think about the fest? Oh, it's been a blast so far. It's been really cool, despite the fact that it poured rain for half the day and turned everything into mud and bugs. But since I'm Florida man, mud and bugs are kind of what I'm used to. So yeah, kind of feel like I'm at home.
And I'm one of the few people who ever had Prof. CJ push their truck out of the mud. Thanks, Prof. CJ.
Yeah.
And we're very appreciative that you came out. It's been great having you here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's been my pleasure meeting you all and meeting everyone in the audience too.